Hey guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com with another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements beginning August 14th, 2017. This is episode number 108 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week is from NCSoft, and it's about Lineage Eternal. The highly anticipated upcoming action MMORPG will unfortunately be delayed after the decision was made to scrap the existing Guild Wars engine and start over again with Unreal Engine 4. While the delay is obviously disheartening, as I think a lot of us are hyped for the game, I think with Unreal Engine 4 the game has a better chance of success anyway. Still, this is super frustrating as the game was scheduled for an open beta / launch in South Korea this year, but that's definitely being pushed back now. Up next, also NCSoft related, NCSoft reported their Q2 2017 earnings report this last week, which showed total sales increased 8% year over year, but more interestingly though, it showed a continuing drop of Guild Wars 2 and Aeon revenues. Guild Wars 2 only did about 12 million in sales during the quarter, but with Path of Fire coming out next month, I suspect that next quarter's numbers should look a lot better. NCSoft also announced a mobile version of Guild Wars is in the works. Another interesting bit of news that came out with the report is that NCSoft will be launching a console version of Blade and Soul sometime in the future, which shouldn't come as a surprise as both Tera and Black Desert Online are also working on console releases in the near future. Also interesting in the earnings report actually is that the revenue for Lineage actually dropped off quite a bit, mainly because all those Lineage players on PC moved over to mobile. So NCSoft is still making a lot of money off Lineage, just on mobile instead of on PC. Next up, I stumbled upon some interesting news this week which wasn't really announced anywhere. Tartaros Online will be launching in November on Game & Game as Tartaros Rebirth, which is an interesting title because the game never actually launched in the West, even though it was listed as coming soon for the longest time on Games Campus. So the game is being reborn despite never actually living and dying here in the West. New MMORPG launches are always good, but it's a bit hard to get excited about Tartaros because the game isn't exactly new. It originally launched back in 2009 and has been available in Southeast Asia and South Korea before, but never in English officially. Still, I'll end up doing a first look video for it when it's playable. Moving right along, some interesting news from Final Fantasy XIV. The game released patch 4.06, which introduced a bunch of balance changes to the game, most notably buffs for Dragoons, Ninjas, Bards, Machinists, and Summoners, but more interestingly though, they announced that 10 million cumulative players have tried the game since launch, which I believe includes free trial users. And while cumulative players is a bit of a dubious metric, they did have the same exact metric last year, which sat at about 6 million, so go from 6 million to 10 million on that same metric is still impressive. The big jump is largely due to the launch of the Stormblood expansion, but also because they made Final Fantasy XIV free to play until level 35, so more free users are definitely checking the game out now. Up next, Shroud the Avatar launched yet another free trial period, which lasts until August 30th. This is their 5th free trial period, and at this point, I suspect they're going to keep doing these free trial periods for some time. The game is still far from completion though, but the studio behind the game just finished their equity crowdfunding round on Seedvest, which actually brought in over $200,000 to continue developing the game. I personally really like the concept behind Shroud, but the interface and presentation definitely needed a lot of work. And speaking of fundraising, Nova Quark, the studio behind the upcoming sci-fi sandbox MMO Dual Universe, announced that they raised $3.7 million from investors this last week to continue developing the game. Total funds raised to date is now at $7.4 million, which includes $670,000 they raised from Kickstarter. Given that the vast majority of their funding is from actual investors, I'm more optimistic about Dual Universe than other Kickstarter MMOs. And according to their Kickstarter page, they expect to be releasing something in December 2018. If you've never heard of Dual Universe, it's actually a really ambitious sandbox game that wants to have one huge shared seamless universe that utilizes procedural generation. It sounds great on paper, but we'll have to wait until at least 2018 to try it, late 2018 that is. Also in fundraising news, Super Evil Megacorp, the company behind the mobile MOBA Vainglory, announced they raised $19 million in additional funding to keep developing their game, as well as developing a project hilariously called Evil, which is their console-based engine. As is, I believe Vainglory is one of the most popular mobile MOBAs in the West, but I think it'll get some huge competition from Tencent's King of Glory later this year. Next up, all roads lead to Ragnarok, this time to Ragnarok Mobile. Gravity Interactive announced a deal with Shanghai Dream Network Technology Company to bring Ragnarok Mobile to Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia. No Western release date was announced, but since they are launching a version of the game in Southeast Asia, an English version of the game will be playable. As far as mobile games go, this one definitely isn't too bad. It does have a whole lot of auto-playing though. No word exactly when the English version will come out though, but it'll likely be by the end of the year or early 2018. And it's worth mentioning, Gravity didn't actually make this game. Instead, they actually licensed Ragnarok to this Chinese company, and that Chinese company made Ragnarok Mobile, and now Gravity is licensing Ragnarok Mobile to launch globally. We'll see how it does. Up next, player housing is live in Revelation Online with a Safe Haven update. Housing is available to players level 49 or higher and takes place on the back of a massive tortoise, which is aptly named the Tortoise Inn. Players can obtain their own private apartments here, which they can then decorate with over 150 unique items, and they can even give keys to their apartment to 5 of their friends, which grants them access to it. Also included is the archaeology system, furniture crafting, and new anime face emoticons. and some other goodies. The housing isn't exactly a huge deal by itself, but I personally really like it when MMOs have player housing, especially if it's done well. Next up, we have a brand new game announcement from Valve, but nope, it's not Half-Life 3, it's Artifact, the Dota card game which was revealed during their International 7, which is the World Championships of Dota. Congratulations, Liquid, by the way. There's very little information out there about Artifact. In fact, all we know is it is a card game based on Dota. Honestly though, I'm a bit disappointed by this news. It looks like even Valve, which is once known for innovation, is just jumping on the card game bandwagon that Hearthstone's success has started, which practically everyone already jumped on. What's worse is that they're super late to the party too. But who knows, maybe Artifact will do amazing. We'll have to wait and see. Right now, we don't really know what the game is even about, just that it's some kind of card game. And speaking of card games, Faeria's first expansion, the Adventure Pouch Over Sky, has officially launched this week, which introduced a brand new co-op mode, 33 new cards, and more. Since the game's official launch about 5 months ago, Faeria has reached about 1 million downloads to date, which certainly isn't too shabby. I personally played a good chunk of Faeria and really enjoyed it. If you like card games, it's worth checking out. Player base wise though, it gets only about 450 or so players online at any given time on Steam, but it'll be launching on mobile devices soon, which should lead to a big jump in total players. Up next, some industry news. Mobile game studio Plarium, the company behind over half a dozen Duker strategy games, was acquired by a casino company for $500 million. A casino company buying a company that only makes pay-to-win mobile strategy games. That makes a lot of sense to me, as these games are incredibly pay-to-win and do their best to milk as much money as possible from their users. What I find really funny about Plarium, though, is that all of their games have the most generic names possible. They have Thrones, Kingdoms at War, Vikings, War of Clans, Sparta, War of Empire, Pirates, Ties of Fortune, and Soldiers Inc., just to name a few. Now, those are the most generic games ever, but it is a lot of moolah, thus making it newsworthy. It's definitely one of the biggest gaming deals this year so far. Next up, perhaps some positive news for the entire esports industry. Apparently, the International Olympic Committee is discussing the possibility of esports entering competition at the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. This is right off the heels of a previous announcement from the Olympic Council of Asia, which announced that esports would be a medal sport at the 2022 Asian Games in China. But that pales in comparison to the international recognition of esports it would achieve if it made it to the 2024 Paris Olympics. The fact that this is even being considered by the Olympic Committee is pretty interesting news. Personally, I don't even watch the Olympics, but if esports were in it, I definitely would. The next and last bit of news this week is from Tera. The game released patch 58.03.01a, which is a bit of a mouthful, this last week, which made some dungeons and class changes. Akron's Inferno on hard mode has been slightly nerfed, making it a bit easier, and besides that, Slayers and Gunners have received some pretty nice buffs, while every other class had some pretty nice quality of life changes. The game's Argon Assault event also begins tomorrow. Tera remains fairly popular on Steam and has been averaging about 1,800 or so players at any given time on Steam alone, but keep in mind it's a bit deceptive because a lot of players are playing off of Steam too. Anyway guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later guys.